Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Labuti, and this is the Autism Independence for Cornerstone series. And this is Cornerstone number 3, education. Now, this is not going to be an easy talk. I am honestly completely disillusioned with our public school systems, not just for my child with autism, but also for my typical children. And it's not about the teachers. I think that there are plenty of well-meaning, amazing teachers that are in the school system, but their hands are tied because of the powers that be that run the show. So, in order for you to understand why there needs to be a different education option for your child with autism and perhaps for your typical children too, I'm going to give you a quick history about our public school systems. So, at the turn of the century, 1903, Rockefeller created called the General Education Board. And this was the governing agency that was responsible for funding schools across the country. And what's interesting is the General Education Board was not interested in promoting children with critical thinking skills. They were, on the contrary, interested in focusing on organizing children and creating reliable, predictable, obedient citizens. Okay, they had, industry was taking off and they needed their factory workers and their, reliable, predictable, obedient citizens. Now, the Rockefellers, along with other financial elite like the Carnegies and the Vanderbilts, have really been able to mold society by funding, and pushing these compulsory style schools for the masses. It was a necessity at the time, and they sort of looked at the big picture and said, this is what we need, and that's how they created our public school system. So maybe that's what they needed back then, but nowadays things are very different. And I'm not just talking about children with autism, but let's look at typical kids, right? Sitting in a classroom 6.5 hours a day, being talked at, chained to a desk, with a more and more shrinking box of what they need to fit in, right? With Common Core and these sort of homogenous ways of being and doing school. I had a very dear friend who was one of our therapists that was a public school teacher, and she literally told me that at the beginning of every day she had a notebook that she had to open up, and she had scripts of how she needed to talk to her class. Not just the materials and the worksheets that she had to actually give to them, but scripts of how to talk to them. So that to me is like so appalling, because kids are all so different and they need differentiation. So imagine our typical kids that are suffering, throw in autism and forget about it, okay? It's really the perfect storm, though, I have to say. It really is a perfect setup, because children with autism are different enough that they are not going to conform to what we want them to conform to. So talk about a catalyst for a new educational paradigm. Just look at all the kids with ADD and ADHD and dyslexia and all these other things and autism. It just ain't working for them anymore, the educational system. So what do we do? Well, there are a couple of models out there, more than a few models, but the ones that I've looked at are very exciting. The first one is 2E education, and that stands for twice exceptional education. And it means kids that are gifted or, talented in some area, which I believe all children are, but they're challenged. So they're gifted, but challenged. So my son happens to go to a 2E school, and it is a beautiful model of education. They are given their core stuff, their math, their reading, their arithmetic, and they get the one-on-one academic instruction for that. But then the rest of the day is spent with hands-on, project-based, experiential learning that is very much catered to the strengths and interest of the child. So 2E schools are popping up. There are dozens of them in this country, in the United States. Hopefully more are cropping up in other countries as well. But what I stumbled across is another model, and this is more for the masses, although the masses aren't necessarily all ready for it, so it really will depend on the child and the parent. But this other model is called Actin Academy. It's Acton. And I stumbled across Actin Academy when I was looking at, 2E education. How can I do a school or some sort of model of 2E education for my child, closer to home, maybe work with the public school systems. But anyway, I found Acton Academy, and what I discovered in really delving into what they're doing is Acton Academy, started by a couple of parents that wanted something better for their kids. Acton Academy actually is the model for 2E education. It's the same thing. They have these, core time in the morning, an hour to an hour and a half of, the basics. And then the rest of the day is spent with hands-on, project-based experiential learning. And they take the model a step further. They believe that every child is on a hero's journey. Every child has a gift, and it is our job as educators and parents to help that child find what their gift or special talent is and to be able to go out and bring it into the world. That's the recipe for a happy life, okay? No more of this trying to fit into this box over here so you can go to this school over here and do these things. Just as an aside, 70 million Americans were polled, and 70% of Americans that were polled, a Gallup poll about job satisfaction, 70% were either moderately dissatisfied or extremely dissatisfied with their jobs and careers. 70%, okay? I don't know about you, but I don't want my children to be part of that 70%. I want them to thrive and be happy and bring their special thing to the world. So actinacademy.org, you can look them up. Lots of them are cropping up all over the world. Again, this is not a model for special needs kids necessarily, but I have to say I am starting a school in September 2019 for my two typical children and other families that are interested in this new educational paradigm. And my child with autism will be the first pilot special needs kid. So I plan on bringing special needs autism kids into this model because I think it is just such a profoundly respectful, engaging, exciting way to be educated. So, this topic, again, not an easy topic. There's not a lot of availability of resources for the kinds of things that I am advocating for, but it comes down to us as parents and teachers and, people that are responsible for our kids' education. We've got to take the step. This is one of those areas where we just have to take the leap. We have to figure out what's going to work for our kids, and we have to work with other parents and get together and make it happen. So I hope that helps. You can jump over to my website. There are some free downloadables about 2E education. Stay tuned about Actin Academy. We'll be in Eastern Long Island in September of 2019. Let me know what your thoughts and ideas are, any way that I can help. I will answer any questions and direct you in any way I can. But this is it. Cornerstone number 3 for independence is education. So if we want our children to be on a trajectory where they can have a career and do something that they love, it's going to have to be from a different educational model. So thank you for listening. Website is AndreaLabuti.com. Lots of information over there. I appreciate your time, and we're in this together. I'm here for you guys. There are definitely solutions to the many problems that we parents with autism face. Thank you.